to let everybody in the room, and 3:30 was the pickle.
Alana, did you remove the other recordings yet?
Yes, they're all removed,
Thank you.
and they're all uploaded on our YouTube
Great, thanks a lot.
channel.
Okay, can you guys hear me? Okay.
Should we mute? Oh,
Can you mute everybody?
everyone's muted. Okay.
We're good to go. Good afternoon to everybody. Temple Beth Am welcomes you all. I want to thank our members for your continued attendance to our Zoom events, and I want to especially thank people who have joined us this afternoon through social media. We welcome you with open arms. Please mark your calendars for Sunday, August 23rd at 4 p.m. when Scott Dembski will present a high holiday tune-up. It will be a discussion of sounds and music during this time. Alana, the rabbi, and I continue to plan virtual experiences for the next months. We are very focused right now on the period between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Please check our What's Happening email and social media for updates. Something we just came upon and want to give you a heads up about is happening this Wednesday, August 12th, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. There is a $10 fee to attend. It is a virtual group tour titled The Notorious RBG, The Life and Times of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and it is a private docent-led virtual tour of the RBG exhibit at the Illinois Holocaust Museum. We will get this information out to you ASAP. So on with the show. Babka first rolled out in the early 19th century in Jewish, Polish, Lithuanian communities. Extra challah dough was filled with fruit jam or cinnamon. As chocolate wasn't available then, it wasn't used until the 20th century. Babka may have gotten its name from the Polish babka, meaning grandmother, relating to the Yiddish babi. We are so fortunate to have our own Barbara Wasser return this week, showing us how to make this delicious pastry. Barbara is the author of the award-winning cookbook, Divine Kosher Cuisine. If anyone still needs a copy of the recipe, please call the office and ask for Alana. And any questions, please type them into chat. Thank you. And Barbara, take it away.
Judy, thank you so very much. And thanks to all of you for joining us today. Judy took a little bit of what I was going to talk about, but that's okay. That's great. I'm glad you did the research, and that's wonderful. Babka was not part of my upbringing. I came from a Hungarian background, somewhat German, Hungarian, but no babka in my life until much, much later. So this is kind of new for me too, and I'm having fun doing it. I just want to show you before we go any further. This is going to go into the oven. This is a chocolate roll, all risen, all ready to go, and I'm just going to pop it into the oven now so that before we finish, we can cut it and see how it is. So in the oven for 25 minutes. And there we go. And the reason why I say 25 minutes is I know that the recipe says maybe 25 to 30, 35 minutes. Whatever you bake something first, and of course this oven is not something that I have been using too often. When you bake something first time, you should always check your product at least 5 or 10 minutes before you think it should be finished to make sure that it is not done, because you can't go back. So you want to check it, test it. Sometimes a toothpick put in to see if the dough is still moist or if it needs a little more time, and then you move on from there. When I was reviewing things, I realized that before we make the dough, and I know some of you have made the dough, and I think it's wonderful, and then we're going to very quickly show you how to make the dough again. But before we do that, we're going to make the chocolate filling. Now, I know some of you are going to use the cinnamon filling and not the chocolate filling, and that's fine. I made the cinnamon filling a little earlier because that's really quick and easy to do, and the chocolate filling is a little bit more complicated. I have 4 ounces of butter in my bowl. I have chocolate, and I have chunked chocolate, and I have cocoa powder and brown sugar, and I'm going to microwave it. So my timer is such that I need to figure out how long we're going to microwave this. I only will microwave it for a minute and then stir. So we'll stop the timer. We'll toss this in for 1 minute. Melting chocolate in the microwave works really well if you're very careful. You don't want to burn it. So it's always, to start with, I do a minute, and then and then you stir vigorously, and then I do maybe another 25 or 30 seconds if it's necessary. When I made the filling earlier, 1 minute worked just fine. So we'll take this out of the oven in 1 minute, and we'll get it going. The reason why I said let's make the chocolate filling first is because the filling is hot, and you don't want to put the hot filling on your dough. So we want the filling to cool so that we can use it when we're ready to roll. While the filling is going, I'm just going to start the dough. I use a stand mixer. It's a KitchenAid, 1985 vintage, but it still works fabulously, and I'm very happy to have it. Okay, so this is what it looks like, and we'll just stir. We'll just stir vigorously.
That again, we can't see.
We'll stir vigorously just to get it incorporated, and then it should be fine. It melted very nicely. Can you see that?
Thank you.
See
That's
that
much
better?
Yes, thank you.
Super, thanks, Scott. Scott and I made a couple of videos, the one that showed you how to make the dough, and so we have learned. He's up in Schenectady, New York, and I'm here in Lauderhill, but it works, and you can get on. I got on his page where he teaches virtual school, so I got on his page, and it worked fine. So this incorporated very well, and we're just going to put this aside and let it cool. Maybe give it a stir for a minute or two. So now we'll start making the dough. I use a dough hook. If you don't have a stand mixer, or if you don't have a dough hook, you can use a regular hook. You can also use a processor, a food processor. You can also use your hands so that the dough can be kneaded very easily. You mix it with a spoon, and then you knead it. We're going to knead it a little bit, and you'll see how that works. But I talked on the video about how to measure dough, and you can't just take the 1 cup metal measure and put it in your dough and hope that it's going to be a cup. So you need to really aerate your dough. I don't know whether you can see it. You really need to aerate your dough. Sometimes I take a whisk, and then you very gently, I'm using a 1/4 cup measure, but you just very gently pour it in and do whatever. But instead, I chose to weigh the dough. I like to use a scale. And when I think about it, I do. And so 17.5 ounces of dough. And then I checked it the other day and it actually measured a quarter, the 4 cups that were required. So we'll put our dough in, but we need to get our yeast working. So I'm warming up half a cup of milk, regular milk, in the microwave. 30 seconds should be enough. We'll give you the temperature. You remember how you used to check the temperature on your wrist when you used to feed the baby? Well, for those of you who have done that, that's what you want it to feel like. You just want it to be warm. You don't want to kill your yeast by it being too hot. So that cup of milk, I measured off, I measured the sugar, and I took a teaspoon of sugar off from that and put it in the milk. And now I'm going to open a package of yeast. This is regular active yeast. Somebody asked me if they could use a different kind of yeast, and I said, you know, having not ever used it, I don't know how to answer you, but sure, why not try it? Some people who really are yeast bakers like to get the fresh yeast, and sometimes you can buy it from the bakery if we can ever get to a bakery. Anyway, so we have the milk, we have a teaspoon of sugar, and we're gonna whisk it a little bit. I have a tiny little whisk. You can use a fork, it doesn't really matter. You're gonna let it sit for 10 minutes. We'll put a timer on and see what the 10 minutes looks like, and see if it will bubble up to make sure that it's working.
So Barbara, it seems like you have about 2 or 3 timers going right now. A couple of our friends are worried that you don't know how many minutes you have left on the chocolate babka. So
I know that.
just while she's playing with that, I used the coconut milk recipe in mine when I made my dough. I did the coconut recipe, and bakers, we just call it tepid, you know, tepid temp.
Well, Scott thought his yeast was maybe old because it had a May date, but I'm sure that beyond that, it probably works fine. Okay. While we're letting letting this work, we're going to put the flour and the rest of the sugar and the eggs. I like to crack the egg on the counter, because if you hit it on the side of your glass, you might get eggshell in it. So this way, we'll do it this way. These are extra large eggs, and I learned from Ina Garten about 10 years ago. I think most of you know about her wonderful cookbooks, that large eggs are not really large anymore, but the extra large egg has the right amount in it. So if you go online to see an equivalent, a large egg should be 2 ounces. When I check the eggs that I have here, the extra large egg was 2 ounces. And so I have, in all my baking, I have been doing extra large eggs. And now we just need an egg yolk for the rest of this. And I'm saving the whites, maybe to make almond horns one of these days. We might do that online if there is an interest. So you can take the egg and just put it in your hand, let the white run through, and plop it in. Okay, there we go. 1 second, let me get rid of this. Okay, our 10 minutes is not up yet, so we'll wait a sec. We need a pinch of salt. I have some salt in here, and so just a little bit of that gives you an eighth of a teaspoon of salt. Laura Sternberg had asked me when to put the milk in with the yeast, and I guess I was not overly clear in writing the recipe. So number 2 says add the yeast and the sugar and the milk, and when it's bubbly after 10 minutes, pour into the bowl of a stand mixer. It probably should say pour the yeast mixture, into a bowl with a stand mixer. So the only other thing that we don't have is the vanilla. We want a teaspoon of vanilla. This is my private stock. I make vanilla by getting vanilla beans.
We can't see your hands at all.
You can't hear me?
We couldn't see your hands.
Oh, I'm sorry. Anyway,
no.
I measured the vanilla. This is my private label. It's Catering Kosher Vodka, and you put vanilla beans into it, and in Divine Kosher Cuisine, my cookbook, we tell you how to make your own vodka. And it's nice to do if you can get the vodka at Pesach time. I did many years ago, and of course, I don't have it for Pesach anymore because I'm using it regularly, but it's nice to have.
Mom, quick question from Alyssa.
Yep.
She said that she refrigerated her dough and it seems dry. Can she moisten it?
Yes, if your dough seems dry, you can moisten it. I would try, you can either add a little bit of oil to it, like maybe a teaspoon at a time, or a little bit of water. I would only add a teaspoon at a time and try and knead it in. I hope that helps. Okay, we're gonna run this. You're probably gonna have trouble hearing me, but I'll try to talk louder. At any rate, we're waiting for the yeast, waiting for the timer to tell us if the yeast is ready.
So there's a question while you're mixing. Do you have to wait until the end to add the yeast mixture? In Barbara's, the way she did it, she put her dry ingredients in first and then added the eggs. I don't know if she's added the butter yet. But when I did it, I started mine in the bowl. I had the yeast and the sugar and the warm milk, and I let it sit, and then I added the flour and then the egg. So it really doesn't matter how you're doing it, as long as you mix it carefully. And also, once you want to do it slowly at first until it incorporates, and then you want to speed it up and put it on high for about 6 or 7 minutes. It'll knead everything for you.
Yeah, so I'm doing it slowly so that we don't have flour all over. But okay, the yeast is beginning to bloom. Can you see the bubbles? So hopefully your yeast looks like that too, for those of you that have already made it. So we're gonna just pour that in.
All right.
I'm gonna stop the mixer for a minute and just get the flour down.
Mom, a question's been asked about what speed you're using on your machine.
4. I'm using 4.
Did everyone hear that? She's using 4 on her machine, which is probably about midway in the numbers, depending
It's
upon
about-
what kind of machine you have.
It's about midway. You can see that the dough has come together pretty well. And we're going to add our butter. I like to add it about 1/3 at a time and mix it in. And you probably need to beat this a good 5 minutes. But I don't know that we'll do that. We'll see. We'll move along. For those of you that already have the dough done, we'll move along to filling the dough. This is 4 ounces, but I'm only going to use 3. So it takes a little, so I put the mixer up a little higher. I put it up to 6. The speed on this goes to 10, from 1 to 10, from 2 to 10. So it's working itself in. By using the dough book, gives you some kneading that you don't have to do by hand, which makes it a little bit easier. For those of you that are accustomed to making bread and kneading dough, you're ready to do it. But for those that have never done it before, this really works very well. So we'll add a little more butter. So Scott, you said you used the coconut oil? I don't know whether he heard me. Is he unmuted?
Yeah, no, I used butter, but I used coconut milk.
Oh, coconut milk. Oh, okay. Because I did make a par dough. The picture that I have on Barb's Kosher Kitchen on the Facebook page that I just created of the babka in a tube pan. That was a par babka. I used the coconut oil and I used coconut milk, and it was delicious. You would never know that it was a par product at all. So it works very well. I did not try margarine, but at some point I guess I will. For those of you who prefer to use margarine and make things carb chocolate chips, etc. Carb chocolate. In talking about the chocolate mixture, I used bar chocolate. I like to use, since I discovered Alpro's chocolate at Pesach time, I have loved using Alpro's chocolate. It's a Belgian chocolate. It's kosher. It's parve. The only problem is that it does have some hazelnuts, a hazelnut product in it. You can't taste it at all, but if anyone has a nut allergy, then you can't use it. In talking with, listening to Paula Scheuer, who is a cookbook author, and some of you may have her cookbooks. She has written 4 of them. She's been doing babka for a long time and did a babka video a few weeks ago. She talked about using Calbo chocolate, which is also a very, very nice chocolate. They do make a parve. They also make a milk chocolate. Sometimes it's hard to get. You have to maybe order it online. Let's put the last of the butter in. Smells like chocolate in the oven. Okay, so this has to work itself in. And I'm not going to take the time to get it all the way incorporated at this very moment because this is not a dough that I'm going to use this minute. So I'm going to stop the machine and show you what it would look like when you pull it out. And if you have any questions, Scott and I did a very nice video, and it shows it pretty clearly as to what to do. So I need to just clear myself a little bit of space and get some dough that's ready.
Gail, yes, you can cut yours in half now and freeze half if you want it. Now's a good time. Gail asked if she could, she's only going to make half her recipe. So after 2.5 hours on the counter, your dough's going to double like mine did. And then you can cut it in half. And then I'm going to use both of them right now, but I've just rolled mine out. And Barbara's going to talk about how to roll the dough after it's risen. Now she's just made the dough for us, but most of us that made it last night, our dough was also risen, and we're going to roll it out. And for some reason, I don't have a rolling pin, so I cleaned this bottle of olive oil. I put a little and
that was being useful. Okay.
So Mom, there are a couple of questions
Go ahead.
about if you use coconut milk, do you still need to use butter? So the answer is yes. You need to, if you want to make it totally para, then you need to use para margarine instead of butter. And then with regards to the tasting of the coconutty flavor, so it probably depends on what kind of coconut milk you use. If you're concerned about being coconutty and not really liking that flavor, you can use a combination of coconut milk and either almond milk or oat milk, which is also a non-dairy milk that won't have a strong flavor and taste. There's a lot of non-milk options out there in the market today that you can use that are not using soy-based products if you don't want to use soy.
Right.
So there's a lot of options out there.
Good, Amy, thank you. Okay, so this is a half of the dough that's risen. Okay, and when you, okay, let's see, how do I get, okay. Okay, so when you, I'm rolling out on a piece of parchment, okay, and hang in one sec. Let's see what this babka looks like in the oven.
smells delicious, Barbara.
Okay, it's looking very nice. Looking very nice. I think it needs another 5 minutes, so that's what we'll do. And while we're doing that, we're going to make the simple syrup because we want to paint the babka. So look at your ingredients and your recipe for simple syrup. It's 1/3 cup of sugar and 2 tablespoons of water. And you microwave it for 30 seconds and give it a stir. And then you will paint that babka with this simple syrup. Now, it's interesting. Scott said to me, can I use honey? And I said, I don't know why not. And I said, you could also use maple syrup. You might want to thin it out a little, but it probably would work without doing that. So,
Yeah, you could do powdered sugar too. Some people like that glistening feel. Some people don't. So, you know.
well,
Really
you know, powder, whenever you need to camouflage. Powdered sugar is always a great camouflage. But so I think that this is fine. We're just stirring it so that the sugar gets dissolved, and we're ready to go. Okay, so I have this piece of dough, half of the dough from earlier when I made it, and it rose very nicely. And we're gonna roll it out. We're gonna fill it. And I'm gonna show you how you actually do it. So for those of you that have dough and are ready to go, you want to sprinkle your piece of parchment, and I like to work on parchment, and you'll see why. Because you can lift the parchment, you can move it around, you can get it to where it's doing well. So you sprinkle the flour so that you don't get it loaded with flour. I have to laugh. Paula Scheuer said, if you remember when your children went to Jewish center school or something and came home with the kindergarten kids came home with a challah that was so loaded with flour because they put so much flour in it. So that's not what you want to do. I don't know. I assume you can see my rolling. So we're going to try to get this as thin as we can. I like to try to get it to be about a 12 by 16 rectangle. You can lift the parchment up and put it back down so that it gives you able to roll. I like to use parchment, 2 pieces of parchment when I roll out pie crust. And so I could have done it that way with this too. And then I keep on turning it over and rolling it so that it doesn't stick. But that works well. So we're gonna lift it up, roll it, bring it back, lift it up, bring it back, and just continue to roll. You want to get it as thin as you can. So if you're working with me now, you want to, I usually like to take a ruler and see how I'm doing. I think I probably have it at 16. What happened to the ruler? There it is. Whoops. Well, I have it at 15. How's that? And at 11. So we wanted a little bit more, but not very much, because it's pretty thin.
I'm 11 by 16.
You're 11 by 16. Okay, sounds good, Scott.
How far do we want to go, Ma?
What?
12 by 18?
12 by 16.
Okay.
12 by 16. Okay, so we're good. I think we're fine.
My mother raised 3 bakers, and we all do things a little bit differently.
Okay, so that's what it looks like. Can you see the dough? Okay, it's probably 1/8 of an inch. Maybe it's a little bit less, but you want it nice and thin. Let me see if we can use this chocolate filling. Okay, so I'm going to use half the chocolate filling. And I learned that if you put your filling in an X on your dough, can you see that? Then you're sure, or you can be reasonably sure, that you will have enough filling to finish. But if you start at one end and you don't get to the other end, you're out of luck. So you want to try to get it as much as you can over the whole thing. What I'm doing is, this is a chocolate, and I'm going to sprinkle some mini chips, or if you don't have minis, you can take regular chips and either hand chop them or put them in the processor to get them a little bit finer. So that's what I like to do. You want to spread the dough, the chocolate pretty evenly.
All right, so I'm in a situation where half my dough isn't really going to, half my filling, because I made this, of course, without looking at a recipe, I just did it. So I could choose to do this, and what I think I'm gonna do, because I wanted to make a big one with the ring, because I just like the way that looks. So I'm gonna thin out my dough just a little bit, because apples tend to be a little bit more moisture. They add more moisture. So I'm gonna just kind of spread my filling kind of lightly, and then I'm gonna sprinkle it with a little powdered cinnamon sugar, and I think it'll make it, should be just fine.
Are you on half, Scott?
Yeah, this is half.
Okay.
I did the whole thing. Maybe I should just dump the whole thing and make one apple and do the other one something else.
No, you're fine.
My feeling is-
Then you don't do it in the, I don't know. Okay, so anyway, let's come back here and let's show you how to roll. So you have your filling, and then you want to put some chips in. And I use about a little more than a half a cup. And I sprinkle them all around. And so if you don't want it that chocolatey, you could use chopped nuts, walnuts, pecans, almonds, and I think pistachio nuts sound like a wonderful idea, although I haven't tried it, but it sounds really good. So, okay. So now what we do is you use your parchment paper and you lift the parchment paper up so that you can start to roll. And then use your fingers. You're going to get chocolatey, but that's okay. But you can use the parchment to lift it even a little bit more. And you want to roll it and what we're going to do is we're going to roll this up, and then we're going to pop it in the freezer for 10 minutes. What that does is it solidifies it a little bit so that we can cut it and make an inside out pasta so that you see much more of your filling. It's a very clever idea. I don't know who came up with it, but it's very clever. And so we're going to roll this way.
The apple filling made the mixture a little bit more liquidy. So I'm not really sure how that's going to work out, but I'm excited.
Well, I think you'll be okay.
And
Okay, so I'm going to roll it up. And you can spread it a little bit so that it's kind of more even. I'm going to roll it up, and I'm going to pop it in the freezer. I made myself a tray out of cardboard, covered it with foil, so that I can put it right in the freezer, because I really didn't have a pan that fits properly in my freezer. So that's what it looks like to do that. So we're going to put it in the freezer for 10 minutes.
right. I have something that I can do.
Okay, while that's in the freezer for 10 minutes, Scott and I made a video showing you how to make mini babkas. And also how to use, and then there are a couple pictures of how to use different pans. One of the things that I'll show you when we take this out, and it's a little bit firmer. I took an 8-inch cake pan and covered it with a piece of parchment. And you can make a wreath, and then so it's another shape. If you don't have the loaf pans that we're going to use.
Did you take your babka in the oven out?
Somebody just asked what happened to the babka in the oven.
I'm sorry.
What happened to the babka in the oven?
What happened to the babka in the oven has to come out. and we're gonna paint it with some simple. We have to nuke the syrup again.
All right, while you do that, you want me to show the video, Ma?
Sure.
All right, folks. So you can, after it's cooled, it comes out of the freezer, and then you cut it and put it in the pans. And this is one of the ways in which you can do it. Please tell me that you can all see this video. Why isn't it playing? Oh, I have to go back to the beginning. Okay.
Scott, you're at the end of the video.
Thank you. Oh, yeah.
Okay, I can show how to paint this.
Okay, Ma, go ahead. You show us how to paint it, and I'll reload this.
Okay.
Scott, turn off your share.
Yeah. Okay, so this came out of the oven, and we're going to just paint it with some simple syrup. Then we'll let it cool, and hopefully we can cut it before we're finished with the program. Okay, you paint it generously with the simple syrup. Some people do an egg wash on babka. I kind of like this technique better, but whatever you're used to, if you're used to doing the egg wash, then sure, go ahead and try it. But I think this is a better technique. It gives you the shininess, and it adds a little bit of sweet to it. Okay, want to do the video?
Yeah, I just need, sorry, I was just trying to put my dough in the freezer. I had to cut it. Oh, share screen. Babka bites. Here we go.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to show you an option for making mini babkas, so that if you're entertaining or if you have a company and you want to serve a little bit, along with maybe other cookies or other
You need to turn your microphone off.
Okay. Cakes, you can make some fun to do. I'm trying out a new filling. I'm going to play around with some coffee and some apricot, and we'll see how it works. So that's the filling that I'm using. But I'm going to show you how to roll it out. And just so that you get the flour on it and you can work it out.
I'm just going to pause for a second. I think that someone, if my camera is muted, I don't think you can hear my mom on the video. So I think I have to keep my microphone muted, unmuted. Does anyone need me to go back?
I'd start again, Scott, because I don't think people heard anything.
Okay, thanks.
And yes, you can't mute your microphone if you're playing the video.
Hi everyone, just wanted to show you an option for making mini babkas so that if you're entertaining or if you're having company and you want to serve a little bit along with maybe other cookies or other cakes, you can make some minis and they're fun to do. I'm trying out a new filling. I'm going to play around with some poppy seed and some apricot, and we'll see how it works. But that's the filling that I'm using. But I'm going to show you how to roll it out and how to cut it. Okay? So what we want to do is we want to take our dough that has been sitting out because it had been refrigerated overnight, and we can do a little bit of, you want to put a little bit of flour, just a little, on your parchment, not much, and you can give it a couple of beads just so that you get a little bit of flour on it and you can work it well. Okay? So we're going to roll it into a rectangle, pretty much as thin as you can. Little flour on your rolling pin, and you want to roll it as thin as you can. If your dough resists, you can walk away and come back. This is resisting a little bit, but I think that we're going to get it to work. So you can always take it up and turn it over. See how you can move the parchment around, and that's why it's so nice to use the parchment. And okay, we want to get it as thin as you can. Doesn't have to be perfect. It will work, however you do it. I think my rolling pin is 63 years old. I'm going to try this filling. I'm going to use a prepared poppy seed filling. And I'm going to put some filling down.
I'm sorry, I'm having some trouble with my connection, and it's a little bit glitchy.
Okay. Could be your connection or it could be mine.
No, it's mine. I thought I edited
So,
that
want me to
out.
stop?
No, just keep going. Keep going. I swear I edited that.
So I'm putting some poppy seed filling down, and then I'm going to make a ribbon of apricot filling. Not much, just a little, to give it a little bit of a different flavor. And then we'll put some more apricot filling on. Okay, I'm putting some more apricot in, and then I will finish it off with the poppy seed. So it's quite a bit of poppy seed, and it should be very interesting. I have a husband who loves poppy seed, so let's hope he likes this. I just thought that the apricot would add to the flavor and the taste. Okay, so we're in good shape. And what we're going to do now is we're going to roll this. So you take your parchment and give it a turn. And give it another turn. Don't be use your fingers and turn it in. I like to put it all the way out to the edge. Not like when you're making a strudel and you feel obligated to leave some open so that it doesn't run out. This is not going to run out. It's not going to run anywhere because it's going to be self-contained. We'll see what happens as we do it. So we're going to roll this up until we get a nice roll.
And I see muffin tins behind you there. Are you gonna
Yeah.
cut the dough into portions and then put them into those little mini tins?
Exactly. That's exactly what we're going to do.
It looks so easy.
Yeah. I have a mini tin, and I put papers in half of it, and I'm going to spray the other half so that you can do, if you don't have papers, you can do spraying, or you can just take a little bit of oil and put it on a piece of paper and rub it in. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to do it that way. I mean, about an inch thick. And that's what it looks like when you put them in. Okay? But, so now we're going to put one into a paper. These are a little bit thicker, a little bit wider. So okay. If you want to use, or if you don't have the minis, and you want to use a regular tin, we'll just do it with papers. Okay. So you can take a couple of cuts and kind of push them together. It doesn't matter if they turn over. It's all going to rise and look wonderful together. And that one is a little bit too thick, so we'll come over here at the other end and take a thinner piece. As you can see, it'll all fill in, and it will make a wonderful babka, a babka bite. I think Paula Scheuer, the cookbook author, has called it a babka bite. So that's how you do minis. Then we're going to let them rise, and we will bake them. So tune in a little bit later. We'll come back and we'll show you what happens after they rise and after they get baked.
Hey, so here are the mini babkas that came out. Those were the muffins that she put in, and these were the little mini cupcakes. And here is the ring. The ring is made with 2 rolls, and I believe that Barbara's going to show you today how to braid them in the tradition. Okay, so now we're back to you, Barbara.
Okay, sorry that the video was not great. Can you hear me?
We're good, Barbara.
Okay, now I assume you can hear me. Sorry that video was not great. I don't know what the problem was. But anyway, an interesting thing that somebody commented about, that if you take the roll and start in the middle, it works better than starting at the ends. And so that's a good thought. Anyway, take your roll out of the freezer. Take your roll out of the freezer. You should have a prepared pan, buttered. I'm using a loaf pan, 9x5 loaf pan, buttered and a piece of parchment in it so that when we're ready to take it out, you can just lift the parchment out, okay? What you want to do is you want to cut down the middle. So what you're doing is you're cutting down the middle of your roll. Roll it open. Roll it open, and you're going to make a crisscross in the middle, and then you're going to just weave them together. It's a two-part braid. Turn it around and do the same thing on the other end. So you see what's going to happen, that your cut edges are going to be shown and you're going to see them. Let me show you for a second how you can make a wreath. You take this round 8-inch pan, you put your dough inside like this. You weave the ends together and you have a wreath shape. So that's another option for a shape, but we're going to put it in the loaf pan. So I'm going to take it back out and get this a little bit more twisted. Okay, so if you push it together a little bit, you can tuck your ends under and push it together, and you can fit it into your pan. What's going to happen is that it will fill in when it bakes. That's what it's going to look like. You're going to set it aside and let it rise for 2 hours, covering it with covering it loosely with a towel or a napkin. Okay. All right. Let me show you what the finished product looks like when it came out of the oven. There it is. It's still kind of warm. So we'll cut into it, but we'll see how it looks. Let me get a serrated knife. Do you see the dough? Okay. So we'll cut into the middle. It's still kind of warm. It's recommended that you don't really slice it until it's cool, but that's the way it looks. And that's the way that end looks. So you can see how it's chocolatey all over and does a great job. If you made the cinnamon filling, baking. Okay. Do we have any questions? Is everybody good?
Heidi wants to know if you use a dark pan, I think the answer is if you want to, you can, but dark pan will affect the darkness of the baked product. So
Right, exactly.
you have a darker pan. So if I have a lighter pan, I'm going to end up with a lighter dough.
And I have, the cinnamon one is in a glass pan. And if you bake in glass, you should bake 25 degrees less. So if you're baking in glass, it should be at 325 instead of at 350.
Gail wants to know if we need to let it rise now another 2 hours before we bake it.
It's a good idea. 2 hours, 1.5 hours. It's not going to double in size.
It may grow a little bit.
It will grow. It will grow.
For an hour, and then I'm going to bake it. Otherwise, I won't eat it.
You're anxious to try it, right, Scott?
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have any other questions?
I'm sorry that the video wasn't loud enough, but Barbara's going to post that on her Facebook page so you can all watch it again.
Yeah, on Barb's Kosher Kitchen.
Can you hear me, Barbara?
I can.
One of the statements or questions, I had some chocolate left from the first babka. Can I mix it with cinnamon filling?
Sure. Why not?
Okay.
Chocolate cinnamon would be wonderful.
And do you have any tips about the dough not breaking when braiding?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite hear that.
Nancy was asking when I tried to braid, my dough was breaking.
Dough was breaking. It may not have been kneaded long enough.
Was it too moist that it was breaking, or it was too dry that it was breaking?
If Nancy can unmute herself.
Too dry.
Too dry. Then you should have, then it would have been a good idea to add a little bit of liquid to it just to moisten it. Water works fine. A little bit of oil would be fine. But again, a teaspoon at a time so that you don't overdo it and get it running.
The raw dough?
Yes, the raw dough.
The raw dough.
Okay. Thank you.
I would cut it up into little squares and put it back in the mixer and add a little bit of liquid. See if you can
Thank you.
back to life that way.
I think somebody else was asking a question.
Yeah, Jane Adler is asking how to make the apricot or moon filling.
How to make the apricot moon filling. I used apricot, I had leftover from Untitled still in my refrigerator that was still good. So I had moon filling and I had apricot preserves. And it was as simple as that. It was delicious.
Did you make those fillings or buy them?
I bought them.
Oh, okay.
Pesach time, Hamantashen time, I generally buy them. I have made fillings. Making poppy seed filling is complicated. You really need to have the right spice meal to do it. So I've been buying it. I bought one. It was an Israeli filling. It came from Kiko's, and which is in South Florida, and it was quite good.
Okay. I'm seeing just a lot of comments of appreciation, Barbara, right now.
Thank you.
So,
Questions.
so I don't think we have any more questions.
If you
Yes.
if you don't have a mixer, how long should you knead the dough by hand?
Well, that's a good question, Les. It should get smooth, and it should be
We're gonna
easy.
Bring back, you want it to feel like it's an ear, but it shouldn't feel like pizza dough. It shouldn't have too much spring in it, and it should be nice and fluffy. It'll take a while when you do it by hand. Once you get all the moisture in, then start kneading it,
Right.
and then do that for about 5 minutes and wait and see what happens.
Scott is used to making pizza dough, so he probably knows even better than I do.
I'm thinking I'm just gonna freeze this one, because what do I need 2 babkas for?
You can freeze it. Yes, you can freeze the leftover dough that you have if you haven't made a second one and don't want to make it right away. You can freeze it, take it out of the freezer, defrost it, make sure it comes to room temperature before you try to use it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other questions in chat. So I'm just going to say thank you, Barbara. This was amazing. And thank you to your crew of your kids helping out. I think I certainly learned a lot. I'm sure everybody else did. So thank you so much.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate it. I'm glad we had so many
Hi,
people
Judy.
come. Thanks to Scott and Amy for pitching in and helping me. Really appreciate that too. And Alana and Ken and Judy for co-hosting.
You bet. Ken, did you want to say something about staying on for Minion or?
Yes, thank you, Judy. First off, I just want to make one